It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. I am Marco Nobles. We have our virtual studio open, and this is certainly the most special interviews that I have ever done ever in Rhythm and Soul Radio
Oh
history.
my.
Because I am joined in the virtual studio by the legendary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, um, multi platinum artist, hit maker, you know, activist, you know, health pioneer, as it were, also uh, music pioneer, the incredible Dionne Warwick. Miss Warwick, it is such a pleasure.
Thank you, Marco. I appreciate you having me on your show.
I certainly am honored to be able to talk to you. Um, I guess the first place to start is, you know, it's been 65 years that you've been in show business now.
Sure is.
You
Sure.
know, and still performing and still, you know, being amazing. Um, do do you are you able to take the time to reflect on all of the accomplishments, on all the things that has happened that you've done over the years?
You know what? Between each one of the uh, rewards, I call them, um, I've not had time to sit and ponder things that have occurred in my life. I'm certain that I will eventually get
Hmm.
to the point where I can sit down and say, "Oh, did I do that?" And I'm can't wait for that day. But at this moment, no, I don't have that kind of time. I wish I did.
Right. Um, I got to say, like we talk about, well, I mentioned or inferred about the work you've done through your music and through your notoriety in the health space, particularly around AIDS awareness and your activism around that. And of course, we all remember that's what friends are for, and
Yes.
and what you did with that song. With your friends, including Gladys Knight, who has I've seen recently as she continues to tour and continues to be amazing.
Uh-huh.
What is it, as does Patti LaBelle? What is it about um, maybe the generation that you all could continue to be able to tour and do shows, because it's a lot to be able to do that for newer artists, and you guys still set such a high bar
Yeah.
for what artistry and show business is.
Yeah, it's amazing how our babies, the youngsters who are taking over the airwaves, the radio, etc., have made a decision that they they created show business. You know that, right? But
Right.
it's wonderful to be able, first of all, to still walk out on the stage and receive the embrace of your audience. That they're there for you and they love you, and it makes for, I think, the kind of show that they come to see. A lot of smiles, a lot of laughter, a couple of tears every now and then,
Hmm.
but basically, it's a joy, not only for me, but as it turns out, it becomes a joy for the audience.
Right. Speaking of joy and speaking of you know um, taking over, you're going to be taking over the Apollo Theater.
Yes.
Very soon, at the end of this month, the end of June, fittingly Black Music Month,
Mhm.
with your "Don't Make Me Over." It's you know, performances, it's clips from historical clips from your career, and conversation with your manager and son. Um, to, to, to talk about your career and talk about the memories. Now you've been doing this. You've been doing this in Europe. Is that is
Yes, we just came back. In fact, 2 weeks ago,
okay?
we did 17 shows over there,
Hmm.
and very well received. They loved the show, which I was very much impressed with the fact that we were doing the right thing.
Right.
It's kind of letting people know who and what Dionne Warwick actually is. It's not the oh I thought or didn't you or uh, I heard but you didn't hear it from me, so you
Hmm.
didn't hear the right thing. Okay,
Right, right.
yeah, but now you're going to be getting the true story, and I'm certain like I've said all over Europe that I can't leave the stage without singing, or you would throw rotten eggs at me. So I will be singing as well as running my mouth. But it's a fun show. It's you find yourself getting information that you want to know because a lot of
Mm,
people have made up their own little scenarios about me, and until they hear it from me, that's what they are. They're just their own scenarios. But
right.
you will get the true story, and I think it's something that people need to know so that they can kind of put all that madness that they've been hearing out of their brains. Now they will know the absolute truth.
Right, right, right. And you haven't. This will be the first time you've done this in the states, though, right?
Yeah, it's the first time.
And you're bringing it back to the Apollo Theater. Yeah.
Absolutely where it
Uh,
belongs.
well, yeah. So talk about that. Why your decision to do it that way, to do this one woman show in essence, and structure it this way to start in Europe and then the first time in the states come to the Apollo Theater.
Yeah, well, the Apollo's where I actually started. I
Hmm.
started with the gospel a caravan that was there, and I did the amateur night with my group, the Gospelaires.
Hmm.
And it was a wonderful night. We sang a song called "To Those That Wait," and actually we won amateur night that night. So it was
Hmm.
an incredible pleasure. So I'm going from the first time to unfortunately the last time here at the Apollo because after this show, that's I'm the last show in there. They'll be
Right.
closing the doors to the renovation. So I want everybody to come on out and celebrate with me.
Absolutely. It is Friday, June 27th at 8 p.m. And you can go to the website, apollotheater.org, to get all the details and make sure that you are there to celebrate with an icon, with a legend. One things that I find interesting, with a number, it's interesting to see reinvention in different ways. And I say that because you mentioned the show business babies, as it were. Um, and but you don't, you and a number of others, like I see Melba Moore and a number of others, don't leave the social media just to them.
No.
We see you're active. You're active on social media. You're calling people out from time to time.
Oh
You
yeah.
know.
Sometimes you have to do that.
Right. Um, Talk about the importance of how important you feel it is to stay involved and stay active like that. Because a lot of people will say, I don't do that. I don't do social media. I leave it
Mhm.
to the young folks and all of that. But
No,
you know,
you gotta stay current. That's first of
mm,
all. And when I first entered tweeting, I used to call it twoting.
voting.
But I just basically was looking at things that these youngsters were writing and saying to each other, and I was not too pleased.
Hmm.
And when I finally decided, okay, enough, and I let them all know there's a grown up now in your presence, which
Hmm.
means that we're going to have to curtail some of this stuff that you guys are doing.
Mm.
And I let them know I'm going to be asking questions, and then you're going to ask questions, and you're going to get answers. But I want you all to understand there's a way to say what you have to say and be courteous about it. And always, at all times, end whatever it is you're saying to anyone, end it with a smile. And,
Hmm.
they kind of liked what I was saying to them. There were no reprimands. I started poking a little fun at some of our celebrities and, and things of that nature. And they took it with lighted heart as well.
Hmm.
When I first started, I I called out Chance the Rapper.
Hmm.
And why you have to say everybody knows you rap. Why you gonna put rapper in your name? And he responded to me, which I found very lovely. And from that, we became friends.
Mm.
And he gave me his phone number, and we would talk every now and then. And finally, I asked him if he would record with me, and he said yes, and he did. And it was
Mm.
wonderful, the recording that we did. So, and then there's the weekend. I said, there is an ND in weekend.
Mm. Right.
They know how to spell in Canada. you know. It's been a bunch of fun. I've been having a wonderful time, and people have also decided, well, yeah, we like what you're doing, so we're gonna follow you. And all of a sudden, I became the queen of Twitter. And where did that come from? Well, it came from all of my followers. I didn't do that; they did that.
Right, right. Well, because you're a queen first and foremost. Um, and once you entered the Twitter space or X as it is now, you're the queen of that.
Yeah,
So obviously more people, we want that wisdom. We want to be able to celebrate that.
yeah,
I gotta ask, since it just happened, we're in the week. Any thoughts in terms of Sly Stone, making his
yeah,
transition earlier this week?
yeah. It was shocking for me to hear that he had passed, but I'm still a major, major fan of
Mm,
Sly and the Family Stone. They have been the root of my existence musically. I've always
mm,
followed them. I had the pleasure of meeting him. I met him at the beginning of his career. He was still a disc jockey, and so
mm.
we had a long conversation on a show that I did. He emceed, and how he was kept playing my records. He loved my music, and it was a joy to know him. He was a lovely man, and will be missed, but his music will live on.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there'll be many stories like that you'll share within the show. Don't Make Me Over, coming up at the Apollo Theater on Friday night, June 27th at 8 p.m. And we certainly encourage everybody to go to the Apollo Theater website, get all the information, figure out how you can, be there. As Miss Warwick said, it's the last show before they close the main theater for renovations.
Mhm.
And then of course we look forward to Ms. Warwick coming back after renovations.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna close it. I want to open it again.
That's right. That's right. See, we got to put that out there. We got to manifest these things.
Uh-huh.
You know. Anything else that you can share about the show that to let people know a little bit about what they'll see.
Oh my. Well, it's basically questions are going to be asked. I mean, my son, who will be on stage with me, asking me questions that 90% of the questions that people actually want to ask me, I have never had the opportunity to. So they will get the absolute stories around those particular questions. Um, there'll be a couple giggles, of course, a lot of laughter. I love laughing. And then, of course, you might get a tear or two here and there because these stories are from my heart. And they're absolutely the truth. People will go around thinking they know what
Mm.
I am and who I am. And that night, you're going to find out who Dionne Warwick actually is.
That's awesome. I mean, many of us have grown up with you, so the opportunity to hear from you, musically, stories, watching different clips is a unique experience. Uh, this experience I've had to talk to you for these brief few minutes has been a highlight for me. It is a true honor. From like I said, growing up with you and my parents talking about how much they loved you and the elegance that you've always radiated. And I don't know, do you feel that like when you are out and about? Do you feel that the reverence that people have for you?
It's wonderful. I like the fact that people have no problem walking up to me and saying, "Hey, Dion, how you doing?" Which is wonderful. Yeah, hey, how you doing? It means that not only am I approachable, But I want you to come up and say hello to me, or I'll say hello to you. I've gotten in elevators, which is the funniest story in the world,
Mm,
and people are looking up at the numbers instead of, you know, being people. And I
mm.
walk in, and all of a sudden I say, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" And they look at me like I had four heads. And then all of a sudden, the conversation starts. I'm a people person, and I love.
Mm. Awesome. So everybody, take your chance to be around the people person and make Miss Warwick happy by
Yeah,
by being around and being able to interact with her as she shares stories from her incredible career, 65 years of Dionne Warwick performing in this business of show. Um, Don't Make Me Over. June 27th, 8 p.m. at the world famous Apollo Theater. Please make sure to go support Miss Warwick. Thank you so much for being a part.
please. I want everybody to come out and have some fun with me.
Definitely do that. We thank you, Miss Warwick. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio.
Thank you.